Coach Fenwick, thank you for joining me today. For those who are watching today, can you kind of introduce yourself and kind of explain a little bit of your career, where you've been, where you are currently, um, and anything else you would like to talk about yourself?
Yeah, sure. Thanks for reaching out and having me. This is fun. Yeah, I'm currently the head football coach at Southeastern Oklahoma State University, and I've been here 1 year. Previously, before this, I was the head coach at Missouri S&T for 6 years, and um, had built a pretty strong program and built it up, and we did a really good job with some really good coaches and recruited some good players and kind of got my feet wet as a head coach. And then before that, I was at Missouri Western for 6 years as the offensive coordinator, and you know MIAA, and we ended up doing really well there, and ended up winning the MIAA championship in 2012, and went to six postseason games, whether playoffs or bowl games or whatever. And then before that, I was at Minnesota State Moorhead for a year back in '06 as an offensive coordinator, and then got my feet wet in the college game at Occidental College out in Los Angeles, Division III. And then coached high school for 1 year. That was my first job back in California at Birmingham High School. And then I went to college at University of New Mexico, and played there for 2 years. I grew up the son of a football coach. My dad was a football coach at the junior college level, at the Division I level, NAI level, Division III level. He's kind of been around, and so I kind of grew up learning from him and hanging around the office and aspiring to follow in his footsteps and get into coaching. Just seeing what he went through and what he how he built relationships with players and had success and all that stuff. So that now I'm here, and we're trying to flip this program around and get it back to where they had it before.
Awesome, Coach. You mentioned you had been at two different colleges. Oh, you're currently at your second college as a head coach. How different was the transition from being an assistant to head coach to switching programs as a head coach? How different are those two transitions? Are they the same? Is there massive differences? How's that work for you?
Yeah, that's a great question, because I think first of all, going from an assistant and being a coordinator and kind of being the in charge of one side of the ball to becoming a head coach, you lean on the mentors that you had in the past. You get the job, and then you go. You get in that chair and you go, oh my goodness, I'm a head coach. I'm in charge of this whole thing. Where do I start? And it is overwhelming, and I don't think there's anything that really prepares you other than just jump in with 2 feet and go. So, but I was fortunate to work for some really good head coaches at all. Obviously, growing up under, with my dad being a head coach for a long time, and watching him. But then, also when I was at Occidental, I worked for Dale Weedoff, who's one of the, just a great human being, a great person. Really did a good job of letting us coach and letting us learn. Working for Jerry Partridge at Missouri Western, kind of the same deal. I mean, just a good mentor, and just to see how, how he handles a program and lets his coaches coach, and then just seeing the success. And then, even back to Ed Croson, who I worked for 1 year in high school, and watching how he ran a program. And he was a guy that won state championships and at a couple different places. So that leaning on those guys and just kind of what I learned from those guys, and then really I just remember jumping in and saying, okay, this is what we did at Missouri Western. This is what I know, and we're gonna run the program like that. But then I think as you get into I think every university is different. Every place has different resources. Every place has different administrators. Different. How many assistant coaches you have, how many, what kind of players you can recruit. So I think you have to be able to adapt to the situation that you're in. And so that probably took a year to kind of figure out, okay, who are we at Missouri S&T? What's our niche? What kind of athletes do we have? What are the daily things that they deal with that we need to adapt to? So I think once we identified those things and really kind of we're able to kind of figure out um, um, what made them go, and what the resources were. We were able to um, really devise a plan for that situation. The next part of your question, as far as becoming a head coach for the second time, I think it's very simple for anybody to think, okay, well, I've been a head coach. For me, I built the program up. We go 10-2, and had a couple different job opportunities that were on the table, and you're feeling good about yourself, and you're feeling like, okay, well, I'm gonna go to this other program, and we're gonna start there where we left off at S&T. Well, that's not necessarily the case. You've got a completely new team. You got different resources that you're dealing with, different administration, whatever policies, or things that you need to maybe upgrade, or maybe things that they have that maybe you don't want to use, or just whatever it is. There's just so many different situations that can occur when you're taking a new job, and then you're just trying to you got to get your kids to buy in. I mean, it's a tough deal. When you come in as a new head coach, and it's a tough deal for the players that are going from one philosophy or one culture that works, that they've bought into, that they've kind of that they've jumped into, and then all of a sudden somebody else comes in, and it might be completely different. It might be a different emphasis on something, or it might be just a new way of practicing, or it's obviously a new offense and a new defense. And do kids buy into that? Does it fit them? And so you're really kind of just starting over. And then you've got to just kind of tell yourself, okay, this is who I am. This is why I'm here. Because I was able to kind of fit these things together at the previous job. And so we're just going to, keep being me, and, put together a good staff. And the guys that buy in are going to stick around, and they're going to build your program. And there's, guys that maybe they feel like it's not a great fit, and they'll weed themselves out, or they'll go somewhere else, or whatever it is. So I don't think there's any kind of a quick fix, in a sense. If you want to sustain, get to the point where you're going to sustain a program, and compete for conference championships, and finish in the top of your conference every year. So anyway, that was probably a long answer for all that, but I think it's a great question, and when I just kind of thinking through that, I think it's actually helped me kind of reflect on that whole process.
Awesome, coach. And you kind of mentioned hiring a staff there, and then I got kind of a two-part question, because as you were talking, it kind of gave me a second part to this. One, when you switched to Southeastern, how many of your assistants did you bring with you? And then when you are hiring a staff, what are the first qualities you look for in those staff members? Like, what is like, okay, this is what I have to have no matter what?
Yeah. So I wasn't able to take anybody with me from S&T. I had offered the position, but our defensive coordinator ended up becoming the head coach. And then our offensive line coach had just moved. We had just hired him the year before. And his wife said, no, we just bought a house. We're not leaving. So and then one of the other coaches ended up getting out of coaching. So I wasn't able to take anybody. Now, fortunately, when I got the job at Southeastern, I was able to hire guys that I had worked with in the past. So my defensive coordinator, Eric Johnson, was a guy that he and I worked together. We were both coordinators at Occidental College, I don't know, 20 years ago or whatever it was. And had a lot of success there, and worked well together. And I've, as a head coach, I've kind of, what he was doing defensively was what I, kind of was doing at S&T. So, the philosophy that we're a 3-4 base defense. So he's a guy, and honestly, I mean, he's a guy that I'd always reached out to, and he just, family reasons and location and just timing, we could never make it work out. So when he told me, yeah, I'm in, it was awesome because he's just he's a brilliant coach. He's he works very, very hard at it. He's a grinder, which I think is what you want as your defensive coordinator. So so I was able to hire him and had some. And then Todd Throckmorton is the offensive line coach who I worked with. We were both. Well, I was the offensive coordinator and he was the offensive line coach at Missouri Western together, and made 3 playoff appearances and won the conference championship together and all that stuff. And then when I left to go to Missouri S&T, he actually became the offensive coordinator. So, he knows our offensive system. He's called it before. He's he's been in all those those meetings and situations and terminology and all that stuff. So so that right off the bat gave me some guys that I could trust and guys that I could that I knew that we were going to be on the same page. And then really from what I look for when hiring coaches is the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to try to find guys that I have worked with or guys that people that I've worked with or that I know. I'm going to ask for their recommendations. Do you know anybody that is a secondary coach that whether you played for you or coached with you or whatever, maybe was the GA for you and is looking for a full-time position. So it's going to start there, and I think my going into my 3rd year as a head coach, I sat down with a guy who was actually an air traffic controller, but he was doing all this motivational speaking and just different stuff kind of on the side, and just a brilliant guy and just really had things understood things. We built a relationship at church and we'd have these really good conversations. But he asked me one day, he says, what are the 3 things that you're looking for in your coaching staff? And I said, well, I guess I've never sat down and thought about it. I've never, you kind of know what you want, you just in the back of your head, but I've never actually put it down on paper. And so I said, well, I want guys that are going to, that I can trust, number one, that are going to be loyal and trust the process that I'm going to lead them in the right direction and they're going to follow and all that stuff. So, and then I want guys that are going to be good communicators. I want to make sure that we can communicate problems. We can communicate, whatever different issues that come up. We can communicate, who we're recruiting and communicate during games, what's going on. So just good communication. And then guys that just have great work ethic that are just, that I don't have to look, make sure that they're in the office, or I don't have to make sure that they're, I don't have to hold them accountable. They can hold themselves accountable and do the work and get things done and make sure that they're, relaying information to their players. And then, and this is in no order, but I want great teachers. I mean, everybody that I interview, I'm going to have them get up on the board and I'm going to have them talk, teach me something, not necessarily not what I want to hear, just whatever it is that you do, get up and teach it, because I want to know what their delivery is. I want to know, how are they going to relay the message to player A, player B, and player C, who may all learn in different ways. Maybe there's a guy that he can listen to you talk it out and he's got it. There's some guys that are visual learners. There's guys that have to walk through and physically do it. So that's that's really what I'm looking for in our coaching staff. And I would say I'm a guy that I'm a delegator. I'm a delegator in the sense that I want guys to take ownership in the job. I don't know, for example, like special teams wise, like we don't have a special teams coach. I've got 3 guys that do our special teams. And, I want to be able to say, look, I trust you to get this done, go, game plan it, study it, present it, and take ownership in that part of the program so that everybody's invested in one way or another.
Awesome, Coach. I want to kind of move into practice and position work.
Okay.
Kind of first, what does a typical overall not just general practice look like for you guys?
Yeah, so basically we're going to start our practice with offense and defense separate, and we'll do just a 10-minute walkthrough. So we're going to walk through anything that we're going to install, anything that we feel like that's in the game plan that we got to make sure we cover. And then from there, we're going to do a quick, like 5 minute dynamic warm up. And it's, basically we're going to bring the team, together as a group, just to kind of have that, so we're not always offense versus defense and try to, create, I don't want to create that divide. So we come together about 5 minutes. We go through our strength coach puts us through a warm up. And then we do a special teams, individual special teams period. That's about 5, maybe 10 minutes. So it might be snappers and holders and kickers that day. Or the next day it might be snappers, punters, and returners. Or we're just going to work on some aspect of the kicking game. And then whoever's not on that is basically an individual drills. And that is basically a little bit more of a individual warm-up period. We're not going full speed. We're doing some fundamental things that are just kind of getting us going. And then that will kind of gradually get into our individual periods. We'll kind of speed things up. And we'll still be separate for a little bit. And so receivers will start working on, releases. Offensive line will, do whatever it is that Coach Throckmorton's got on the agenda of, run blocks or pass sets or, whatever it is that they're doing. And then after that, while we're still in our individual, we'll get the quarterbacks and receivers together and we'll start throwing routes and different concepts. Defensively, they're kind of going through circuits. They're going through individual drills. So we're kind of spread out all over the field. After the individual, then I try to get things going as far as, we're going to have 2 team periods. We're going to have 2 special teams periods. And we're going to have 7-on-7 and 1-on-1. And I try to mix that up so it's not the same every day. I'll kind of mix those around at different periods. A lot of times, as soon as that indie period where I feel like we're warmed up, we'll do a real quick situation or a real quick competition. We'll do a drill that basically we call it 3-play. And so it'll be, we're going right into 3-play and we'll go, ones versus ones. And, we're going to run a 3-play series. So it could be a 1-play series. If the offense comes out and gets a first down on the first play, drills over and we go back to whatever it is we're going to. And it's just something to change it up and kind of keep guys bouncing around. Maybe it's a 2-point play. We're going to put the ball, 2-point, and it'll be 1 play, and maybe we'll bring the 2s in and we'll do the same thing, but it's just real quick just to kind of change up the monotony of practice. And we can throw those kind of situations in there at any point. Maybe it's a goal line period. Maybe it's a 3-play goal line deal. We're going to get into our heavy package and defense is going to be in their heavy package and we'll just go 3 plays and just kind of get those reps and mix it up. So, but then we're going to do, the team periods and we're going to do, and all of those team periods, whether it's scripted or whether it's a move the ball, it's going to have, some kind of situation to it. Maybe it's a red zone, move the ball. Maybe it's, maybe we're going to work our third downs. One of the things that we like to do is, we call it like second down and plus. And so meaning we're going to play 2nd and 10, and then we're going to play third down and whatever it is. So, if the offense comes out on 2nd and 10 and throws an incomplete pass, we're now going to play 3rd and long. Or maybe we get 9 yards, we're now going to play 3rd and short. So that just kind of keeps our guys, understanding situations and what's the down and distance and what are the tendencies and things like that, just kind of keeps them thinking rather than, 12 plays of 3rd and long where the defensive ends are pinning their ears back 12 plays in a row and your tackles are just taking it in the chin. We try to get them to think and mix it up a little bit. So, but that's pretty much, in a nutshell, kind of what our practices would look like.
Awesome, Coach. Kind of the next part as we continue with practice and overall, you were also the quarterback coach for your team and very heavily involved with the quarterbacks. How do you balance that part of coaching position and making sure they get developed with, and even off field, quarterback meetings and all that, with the jobs and duties as a head coach? How do you find that balance?
Yeah, you hire good coaches around you that you can trust, that can help, do their part. And I think I'm fortunate, like I was saying earlier, that I've got a really good defensive coordinator. So I don't have to worry about what's going on defense. I don't have to go over and check in, and follow up at defensive periods. I can work with the quarterbacks, and like I said, our offensive line coach has run our offense. He's called our offense. And so, I've got confidence that, that if I need to say, hey, call this period because I'm going to go run, I'm gonna go down with the defense, and or he's gonna run the inside run drill or something like that, and I can kind of I can move around and all that. I think one of the things that helps me out, I don't do any of the special teams. Like I said, I delegate this, so I've got a couple different coaches that work special teams, and that gives me a chance during those special teams periods to walk around and just talk to some of the defensive guys and work with, sometimes just work with some of the defense and have conversations and just make sure that they know that I'm not always just down on the offensive side of the end, which it probably looks like I am usually. And they always give me a hard time because they always think the drill always ends on an offensive touchdown or something like that. But I try not to make it like that. But as far as meetings go, I think it's a little bit easier, when you are working with a smaller group. I mean, you've got one quarterback that's a starter, you got a backup. You don't have a huge group that you're rotating in and out most of the time. So that allows me to if I have to step away and make sure I get administrative stuff done, or if I've got a meeting on campus or, wherever it's, I can adjust our meeting, or I can adjust things so that, that we can get it all, get it taken care of, and I can give that attention to the quarterbacks.
Awesome, Coach. And kind of continue with that is, for those listening, what are like 2 or 3 everyday drills you do with those quarterbacks to help develop
Well,
them?
we're huge on we stress footwork. So we're always doing some kind of a getting your feet on the ground, step over bags, ladders. We're going to do a lot of different footwork drops and movements and feel in the pocket. There's a couple really good ones when we have just individual time that I'll take some like tennis balls, and we'll do a drop, and they'll have their feet ready, and we'll have a guy behind me, and he'll be holding up numbers. So basically we're working pocket, pocket awareness, but not staring at the line, not staring at, whether the right guard's going to get beat or not. We're training our eyes to stay downfield. So the guy behind the coach at the line of scrimmage is holding up a number, and the quarterback that does the drop, he's got to keep his eye, and he's calling out the number so that his eyes are fixed on it. And I'll just throw tennis balls at their, around their face, around their head, and so that they have to avoid the tennis. They have to see it in their peripheral. They have to kind of see through the object. And so we kind of say, well, okay, the tennis ball is kind of like a helmet that's, getting pushed by the pocket, and you're going to step up. And so I'll do like 5 in a row and throw them, and just trains them to just keep their eyes downfield and just kind of see things in their peripheral. But so that's a good one. We'll throw towels, and they got to go drop and get their feet set on the towel, and then I'll throw it the other way, and they'll go step to that one, and then I'll they'll sprint out and get out of the pocket and throw on the run or something like that. But we're working drops. We're working our mesh with the running backs every day. And a lot of our mesh with our running backs, we really train their feet as far as where their feet need to be, so that our mesh, we're not running into each other. We're not taking the running back off of his aiming point. So those are things that I think are probably the most important. I was talking to our quarterback the other day about, we were talking about footwork and how important footwork is. But at the same time, you got to have your feet. You may not always be able to be in the perfect position, because you might get a rush. And so you got to be able to have your feet in the ground, and you got to be able to maybe have balance so that you can, rotate your hips or rotate your shoulders so that you can still deliver an accurate pass, with a rush. So we're working, just odd throws, odd body position throws, things that, I'm always going to do something where I'll have a bag and I'll just, rush and make them get it, step aside and step up and throw. So footwork is the number one thing. I'm always trying to find different things. And then we do a ton of stuff with our receivers. I mean, I think in our offense, there's a lot of things where quarterbacks and receivers have to be on the same page. We do a lot of things where we read defenses, read coverage after the snap, and so they got to be, they got to read things together. And so the only way to do that is for them to work together. And so, we'll get out with the receivers and quarterbacks, and we'll probably spend 10 to 15 minutes of individual time where we're working routes or route concepts versus a coverage look, um, and making sure that we're reading and we're all on the same page. So that they can recognize coverage and recognize different looks. So
Awesome, Coach. And then kind of the last thing I got for you is, what are some things, one or two, that you've researched this offseason to help improve your program, whether it be on or off the field?
Yeah, one of the things that we've been looking at is art from ourselves. So we've been here 1 year and we've installed the offense, and our guys basically spent the whole first season really learning it, week to week and all that stuff. And so now we're kind of going back and looking at the little details. A lot of it has to do with our alignment, like our receiver alignments. Where they're aligned, are they aligned correctly, or is our spacing good? Especially like if we're in trips, if 2 and 3, where they lined up, different tendencies and things like that. So that's one of the things that we've kind of studied this year. The other one of the other ones is we looked at a lot of LSU's film this year. Seemed like obviously they were kind of the hot topic this year, but I got a lot of film but specifically what we were looking at is they get into a lot of their tight alignments with their formation. So they'll have a receiver right off the tackle, and then they'll have a slot, 2 slots right next to them, and they're real tight. And just what do they do out of it? What does it give them? Why do they do that so much? And so that's been something that we've kind of looked at, and just honestly, I don't know if we'll do it or not, but it just, maybe a wrinkle or maybe something just to kind of make something look different, or, whatever it is. But it was just more of a curiosity of, I think 2 years ago, I think you saw it out of the Rams quite a bit in the NFL, where there were a lot of the tight formations. And so that kind of, just piqued my interest. What is it giving? What does it give them? Things like that. Off the field, I'm actually looking at at Sunday, schedule on Sunday or, Monday, just schedules as far as what do other people do as far as, when players are coming to get treatment, when are they, when are they going to, when are their meetings? Are they going to practice on Sundays? Do they not practice on Sundays? What kind of workouts do they have? Things like that. And just trying to see what, I thought at S&T we had a really good, I liked what we did, but that was because it fit, the S&T model. There were some things that they had that we had there that we don't have here. So just trying to, figure out, now that I've been here a year, just kind of what's the best way of doing it for this place, and to make it the most efficient and be able to recover and all that stuff. So those are some things that we've been kind of looking at. I think that, going through this whole quarantine deal that, where we weren't able to have spring practice, but, you sit there and go, okay, well, we don't have spring practice, so we're not just going to sit around and wait till football season to start. What are we going to do about it? And so, what's the solution? And so we've had, just like everybody else, I mean, we've had some really good Zoom meetings with our position groups over the spring. And I thought we did some really good creative stuff that I think even after, this is all done, I think we're going to learn from some of the teaching, from a teaching aspect of, using technology and maybe Zoom meetings or games or whatever. And make it competitive and things like that. So I thought it was a really good for our coaching staff to kind of get out of their comfort zone a little bit and get out of maybe what their normal structure of coaching has always been, and try some new things. And I think it's something that that we're going to benefit from as we move forward.
Awesome, Coach. And then before we go, is there anything you want to expand on? Any final thoughts? Whether it's something we hit, or something we didn't hit earlier in this interview.
Yeah, I mean, I guess kind of along the same lines as actually the previous question. There's a really good book that I read. Was actually something I'm also been studying too. That it's called "It Takes What It Takes," written by Trevor Moawad, and he talks about the mental side of sports. I think it's he goes in on the book with Russell Wilson, and so he talks about the mental side of things, and neutral. Basically, the book is about neutral thinking, not thinking negatively, and not getting too high and going too far positive with the spectrum, but just being able to handle your business and think neutral. This is what happened. This is what I gotta do to fix it, or this is what I got to do to sustain it, or whatever it is. And so really, really good nuggets in the book that I would recommend. I feel like I pretty much highlighted the whole book, so I got to go back through and make some notes on all of it. But I think it's something that every quarterback should read, and it's something that when we get back into with our players, it's something we're going to kind of cut it up, and I'm going to we're going to study the book with our quarterbacks, just because I think that it's a I think from a mental as a quarterback, if you start if you have bad body language, that's something that your teammates will it reflects, and your teammates kind of get that same doubt. If you're too excited and you feel like you're overconfident, and you threw a touchdown pass, and man, this is easy, I'm just going to go out and do it again. And then, you get a little bit too comfortable, then it's harder to sustain. So, so that's something that we're going to, go through and study and get our kids to understand how important it is just to, you be neutral and just play the next play. And, if you throw 4 interceptions, then too bad. That's it. It already happened. There's nothing you can do about it. So what's the next play going to bring us, and how are we going to execute the next and get yourself out of that, so that we can, we can't start over. The officials don't let us start the game over. So we got to find a way to get ourselves out of it and find solutions and finish. So anyway, that would be something, something I've been studying and reading, and that I highly recommend to anybody that listens to this that you study that book. It's good.
All right, Coach. Well, thank you for your time today, and
Sure.
I wish you luck this season. Thank you.
Yeah, I appreciate you having me on. It's fun, and good luck to everybody.
Thank you, Coach.